Close your eyes if that feels comfortable and picture a faint, silvery dawn settling over the low-slung roofs of 17th century Edo. A pale mist drifts across narrow canals. The rustle of silk garments and the slow exhale of a world bound by strict, almost musical rules. Wherever you are listening, allow your shoulders to drop, your jaw to loosen, and your breath to lengthen. Let the concerns of the present fade, like ink washing from a calligrapher's brushstone, as we begin our first segment. Muffling the clop of wooden geta, softening the creak of bamboo shutters, and turning every distant lantern into a trembling halo of orange light. In the hush before the city's markets stir awake, you stand at the edge of a cobbled lane, breathing air that holds the earthy temps of damp tatami, and the faint charcoal smoke of cooking fires just beginning to glow. Tonight, we will linger here in chasing, unhurried moving, only with the measured rhythm of history's quieter heartbeat. Together, we will explore the hidden truths of samurai Japan, peeling back lacquered myth to reveal the quiet contradictions beneath. 4 gentle chapters await us. Why it sucked to be a Ronin in Edo, Japan. An immersion into the slow erosion of honor and the small indignities of everyday survival. The 47 Ronin, a calm unraveling of the famous vendetta, asking whether it was sincere devotion or careful political theater. The art of Seppuku, a subdued look at ritual death, shame, and social control. And finally, tea, silk, and silence, a soft glide through the muted luxuries of daimyō lords, where power whispered through paper screens. There will be no sudden clang of steel heraldry, the steady hush of footfalls on packed dirt. So you've just finished tidying your room. Nice. Now go ahead and open the door. Ah, and there's the rest of the world. After a moment of stunned silence, you finally venture out into the swelling streets of Edo. You take whatever work you can get, big or small, and slowly rebuild your life piece by piece. But it's hard, very hard. You feel like a shadow, a whisper of what you once were. Here you find solace, a quiet prayer amidst the chaos. Honor-giri has not left you, but it has become a private practice like breathing or swallowing. Outwardly, your top knot remains tight, your back straight, your greeting impeccable. Inwardly, though, you wrestle with an unspoken fear that the world no longer needs men like you. Hundreds of thousands of souls, and not a single one of them cares that you're there. He recognizes you and asks if you'd teach him a private lesson. For a handful of silver coins, you agree? An hour later, the lesson is over and you're left alone in the courtyard, wondering if the boy's polite facade hid pity or something worse. As a masterless samurai, you feel exposed, like the scent of disgrace clings to your clothes. You keep your posture straight, though, hand loosely near your katana hilt. Appearance is all that remains of your station. You walk on, head held high, until work, food, and lodging become necessities. One day you meet a student of the Ito-Ryu fencing school. As you make your way through the crowded streets, you pause at a wayside shrine. Are you a Ronin? Imagine yourself on a frost-rimmed morning in the 11th year of the Genroku era. The sky above Edo is the color of worn parchment, and every breath you take hovers briefly in front of your lips before melting away. You were once a samurai of modest rank, a retainer to a provincial lord whose crest you wore with quiet pride. But the castle you swore to defend has gone dark. Your stipend has ceased. Your lord is disgraced or deceased, and you now walk the streets as a Ronin, a wave man drifting without master or harbor. Your lodging is a single creaking cubicle in a tenement row, their race-skin handles polished smooth by years of service. Yet their edge sees little action now. You keep them because you must, because the law still marks those blades as the badge of your class, even if your coin purse is as light as a cicada shell. They are both shield and shackle, a proof of status and a daily reminder of expectations you can no longer meet. The rhythm of your life has settled into a careful economizing. You ration rice by the grain, stretching miso soup with boiled radish greens, and counting each copper mon before daring to sip weak sake at night. To cover the next month's rent, you will pawn an heirloom short sword, promising the pawnbroker politely, always politely, that you will redeem it soon. You doubt you will. For tatami laid end to end, reed paper walls as thin as a sheet of rice paper, and a sliding door that sticks when it rains. The air inside is cold enough to mist your breath, carrying the faint sweetness of last night's extinguished lamp oil. You fold your bedding, stiff cotton, patched countless times, and set it aside to clear space for kneeling. Below your window, an elderly vendor pushes a cart of roasted chestnuts. The iron pan pops softly like distant embers. The scent drifts upward, reminding you of hunger you have learned to ignore. In a lacquered box by the door lie your 2 swords. Dusk gathers like indigo ink across the Sumida River. Lanterns bloom along the waterfront, each glow reflected as a wavering ribbon on black water. You queue at a soba stall, trading 2 coins for a wooden bowl of steaming buckwheat noodles. The broth smells of dried bonito and green onion. You slurp slowly, extending the warmth that spreads through your stomach. Nearby, a pair of fully employed retainers laugh over fresh steak, their clan crests embroidered bright on silk sleeves. You incline your head in polite greeting, acknowledge with a courteous nod, then turn back to their conversation, touched by the chill air that seeps into your patched kimono. A notice board there warns of vagrants impersonating samurai, of thieves carrying illegal blades. You tighten your obi, aware that your right to swords depends on carrying papers proving your lineage. Documents you keep folded carefully beneath your inner robe, close to the heart that feels, some nights, equally fragile. It is not malice. They simply live inside a different bubble of obligation, cushioned by stipends and the sure knowledge of tomorrow's duties. As night deepens, your path home threads past the magistrate's district office. Let the rhythm of their lives be the rhythm of your mind. Wake before first light, fold your bedding, coax a flame to life, stretch out the rice. And so as a faint winter wind rattles the bamboo shutters, you lie down on the reed matting that will never feel wide. Enough draw a blanket to your chin and listen to the distant clang of the night watchman's wooden clappers. Each hollow knock drifts across the rooftops, counting the hours you have yet to dream through. Walk the narrow lanes, bow politely to those you meet, scan the notice boards for work. Teach a class, mind the gate, chase the rumor of employment, pawn another trinket, smooth the same fray, hide a sigh behind a courteous smile. Sip thin tea, kneel in prayer. Watch the moon slip like a pale coin behind the tiled eaves. Sheath your shame, breathe again, sleep, then repeat. The pattern is soothing in its very constancy, like waves breaking on a muted shore. Tomorrow will arrive with the same small uncertainties, but for this moment, you can surrender to the stillness. Floating on the quiet tide of breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, the 47 Ronin, real revenge, or political play? One man's outburst has shattered an entire clan. Hundreds of samurai, loyal retainers, all become Ronin in a single breath. But they have a reputation to uphold, a code to follow. So when the head of the clan, Lord Asano, is ordered to commit seppuku, the ritual suicide of the samurai, his men step in to save him. They carry out a daring rescue, freeing Asano and his family and returning them to their home domain of Aka. There, the real work begins. Over the next 13 years, the Ronin raise an army, secretly training and planning their revenge. They will wait for their moment, studying their enemy, mastering their skills, preparing for the ultimate showdown. This is the true story of the 47 Ronin, a tale of loyalty, duty, and above all, revenge. Coming soon to a streaming service near you. The 47 Ronin, Part 2. After the execution of Asano, his chief counselor, Oishi Yoshio, and his 46 retainers were forced to return to AKA. There they performed the formal rituals of mourning and closure. Clad in plain garments, they marched through the snow to Kira's estate. The night was silent except for the sound of dogs barking and lanterns swaying. They fought their way inside and found Kira hiding in a charcoal storehouse. They offered him the chance to die by his own hand, but he refused. So they executed him and took his head to Asano's grave. Then they waited. It's not just days or weeks, but over a year. The shogunate debated their fate. Shopkeepers left offerings at the gates. Kabuki plays were written in their praise. After 2 months, a verdict was reached. They were allowed to die with honor. Each man was given a blade in a quiet room. And on that day, they all committed seppuku. They scattered, taking jobs as merchants, monks, even beggars. They watched Kira's mansion carefully, mapping its defenses, counting its guards. They waited for their moment. Finally, on the 14th night of the 12th month in 1703, they moved. It was over before dawn. Instead of fleeing, they turned themselves in. Mercy or message? But was it genuine loyalty or carefully orchestrated political theater? For more stories of the legendary samurai, stay tuned. The story of the 47 Ronin has been retold in more than 100 plays. In each version, their motives shift slightly. In some, they are noble martyrs. In others, clever tacticians. Sometimes they are portrayed as pawns in a larger game, manipulated by samurai factions seeking favor with the shogunate. And just like that, the lantern of this segment dims. Beyond the ritual, beyond the cold execution of duty, lies something stranger still: voluntary death, wrapped in silence and silk, offered not in rage but in shame. But in the soft quiet of history, we are allowed to sit with all these versions at once. We are allowed to imagine them in their small rented rooms, lighting incense and writing last letters, not as heroes, but as men who waited for purpose, for redemption, for something to believe in when their world had become shapeless. You can almost hear it now. The crunch of snow under straw sandals, the whispered names recited by mourners at dawn. In our next segment, we'll slip into the deep, paradoxical history of seppuku. Not a spectacle, but as a quiet language of control. Let your mind drift gently there when you're ready. Did you know there's a type of silence that is not empty but deliberate? Like the pause before a bell tolls or the stillness in a tea room just before tea is poured? Seppuku, often translated in the West as ritual suicide, was a solemn and highly codified practice in feudal Japan. But beyond the folded silks and sharpened blades, beyond even the stoic resolve of its practitioners, seppuku was something else entirely. It was a quiet expression of accountability, a performance of inner conviction, and perhaps most powerfully, an instrument of social order. In this next chapter, we step into such a space, not one of violence or action, but of ritual, a slow unfolding of intent and meaning. Let us step softly into this strange and solemn landscape where death became not just a private act, but a public statement, calm/ceremonial and saturated with significance. When you think of samurai, you might picture a warrior class whose code of conduct demanded they take their own lives when they failed to uphold its standards.
But
Why, and how did they do it? When high-ranking retainers fell out of favor with their lord, when daimyō were accused of mismanagement, or when warriors committed a breach of etiquette, they were called upon to perform seppuku, a ritual suicide. For others, it was compulsory, a silent and sudden death that allowed them to save face and preserve their honor. It might seem simple, but for many, it was better to die than to live with shame. Some chose to die by their own hand, ending their lives quickly and cleanly to avoid the protracted agony of a public execution. And then there were those who simply followed custom, because that was what was done, the final poem. Before the blade often came words, a death poem, Jise no ku, which were carefully written and read aloud. They spoke of falling leaves, of melting snow, of the world being a fragile thing. And in this way, the dying man could express his sorrow, his resignation, even his defiance, without causing chaos or bringing disgrace to his family. Because in the end, it wasn't just about dying, it was about dying well. The echoes in stillness. Seppuku, the ritual suicide of the samurai, declined with the fall of the samurai class in the late 1800s, and yet its image endured. In the 20th century, a few nationalists and writers famously chose to die in this manner. From a death shaped by etiquette, we drift now to life shaped by ritual comfort. Beyond the blade and the battlefield, the elite daimyō lords lived in controlled splendor, where the whisper of silk was more powerful than a shout, though in doing so, they became strange echoes of a world that had long faded. Today, few can truly understand the full weight of what it meant to kneel, draw the blade, and commit to silence. But in that stillness, in that carefully arranged room, we glimpse something deeper, a reverence for meaning. Seppuku was a final punctuation mark in a life ruled by rhythm, repetition, and restraint. And now we let that silence settle around us once more. When you're ready, we'll slip into their world of gardens, scrolls, and tea.